Hi, friends. Hello, great team. I've been trying to schedule these training meetings with some of you newer designers individually, but I thought that maybe I can do a few videos to address some common um, issues, obstacles that we are facing to show you some new tricks. Um, So this video will be about a common problem that we seem to have among the newer designers, at least, and that is really making the quote, the text, stand out on um, on posters. So I'm going to show you with a few different examples. You can see here. This is a poster that I just created. We have a lot of new beautiful quotes actually that Marcus just approved, so we're very excited to work with them. This is from the new collection of quotes. Um, and this quote, I'll just read it. The surrounding world is considered a world of illusions. Indeed, our sensations create our picture of reality at any given moment. So how can we tell illusion from reality? So first of all, just a few words about how I chose this image and what I really wanted to accomplish with this poster. And this is something that you always have to give some thought in the beginning, um, creating some kind of common theme for the poster. So in this case, I thought this quote was interesting. First of all, because it was a question, um, and I really wanted to draw the viewers' attention to that. Really get them to think about this question. That's why I have the big question mark over here to draw attention to that. And secondly, the common theme for this poster was illusion. I chose an image actually just by typing in the keyword illusion on one of the websites that I sent to you recently on splash.com. I really like this image that I got. Um, I was able to find it rather quickly just by typing in the word illusion. And if you haven't checked out the website unsplash.com, I suggest that you do. They have a pretty good collection of nice photos that we can use, original photos. So after I chose this image, I'm just going to show you by creating a new page here, and I'll try to show you. This is what the image looked like after I dragged it into this box for a Instagram size poster. So you can see that the colors in the background are pretty warm colors, browns, yellows. I have some dark area over here, but it's not just like one color. Um, so there are a few things that I can do in order to make the text really stand out when I add it to this poster. First of all, since I have warm and dark colors, like this is probably the area that I will be adding my quote to. So since I have warm and dark colors in the background, I will use light and cool colors for my quote. This will make it stand out more. So just for the sake of this example, let me get the quote. Here it is. I'll just do what I don't advise doing, just copying and pasting the full quote in here. create a text box. I'll just put it in. Okay, adjust the size of this. And I'll choose like this color, for example. And let's say I want to use this font. So you can see right away that even though I'm just using one boring font and it's just one, I haven't given any attention to any like typography work for now, but because I use the light and cool font, blue, light blue, that's a cool color. You can pretty much see the quote in comparison to the background on the background, but there are a few other things that I can do to make it stand out even more. You can see here it like kind of sort of really pops. So what I can also do, in addition to this, is I can work with the elements part. By the way, I am using Canva. I believe that some of the newer designers are using this site as well. But I'm not familiar with other websites that you might be using, but this is how you do it here. So shapes, elements, shapes, and then I will just choose a regular white box. And what I'm going to do is I am going to create a filter to place between the background and the text. And this way, you'll see in a moment, but basically the point of that is to kind of isolate the text on the page so that it stands out much more. So I'm just going to drag this over the whole area of my design. Okay, make sure it's covered. And I'll change the color to for example, black. I can use black, or in this case, I want to use a dark color to make the background a little darker so that the text stands out even more. So let's try this blue color, for example. It's a dark blue. I'll bring the transparency down to anywhere between 15, 20 to about 40 here. In this case, maybe I want to go with something like 30. Okay. And now I'm not done. I need to bring this back so that the text really goes in front of it. Okay, so I'll just click here, arrange, and click back. Oops. I'm working with 2 pages here, so it's a little confusing. 1 second. Back. Here we go. So now you can see that the filter that I just created went to the back, and I have my text here in the front. So my background image has gotten darker, and the text here stands out even more. Now, of course, I do not recommend just doing what I did for this example. just copying and paste the whole quote. If you see in my actual design, all of these are separate text boxes. Each line is its own text box. And this way I have much more control over where to put each word of the quote, how big I want it, what kind of spacing to add to it. And the few additional things to make, basically our goal is to have the viewer want to read this quote. If you see it the way that it is currently, it's a pretty long quote and it just kind of looks boring, and it looks like just a block of text on the page. And generally in marketing, we're told that people don't want to read paragraphs. No one has time for that. If it's not something right in their face, something that draws their attention, more likely than not, they will not read this. So I really want to work with the quote. I'm not sure if we'll get to it in this video in detail, how I actually went about doing this, but just a few words about that. I used 2 different fonts here, and I really had to make a decision which parts of this quote I want to bring out, draw attention to. So since the common element of this design is illusion, I really wanted to kind of bring attention to this word right here, which is why I'm using a much bigger font, bigger text size for that, and I increased the spacing here, the letter spacing, so that it kind of like this part looks pretty uniform. The length of the lines is similar. And here I also wanted to isolate the question. I have spaces in between the different parts of this quote, so they're not all kind of one text box. And I have a space here between this part of the quote and the question. And in the question also, I isolated or emphasized the words illusion and reality by making them capital. And I created this large question mark that I put at the end to draw the viewer's attention to that it's a question, that it's something that they should scrutinize, that they should think about. And it makes it more interesting as well. Now, we have one other element here, which is the Kabbalah.info watermark. And you'll see here that if I click in this area, I'm not able to move or select the watermark at all. Why is that? That's because the Kabbalah.info watermark is under the layer here. I see this blue box over here. That's my layer. If I move it a little bit, you'll see the original image underneath. And here's my Kabbalah.info watermark. Okay, I'm going to put that back, but let me show you here how to do that. So I have my watermarks here among all my photos that I've uploaded to Canva. Let me just find it. At this point, there are a lot of things here. Okay, so I'm going to use the white one because I'm using a light font. I'm going to make this much smaller. And maybe something like that. And of course, nothing is properly aligned, and this poster here, you'll see over here that the Kabbalah.info watermark is very nicely aligned with my question mark here on top, and it's all kind of uniform. We're not going to work on typography in this video, but here I put in my Kabbalah.info watermark. Previously, I told you to change the transparency here so that it kind of blends in more, becomes lighter, more transparent. That's one of the things that you can do. Or let's put this transparency slider back to 100. If I want, I can also, since I have this blue layer on top, I can just send this Kabbalah.info watermark to the back beneath this layer. And you'll see if I just click back here, it kind of took on this blue filter that I created, and it's underneath the filter, and I don't really need to do much else with it. So that's one way of working with elements in order to create this layer. And by the way, this layer, oops, let me just move this panel out of the way. If I click on my layer, my filter that I created, I'll see the blue color that I chose for it. I can choose any other color that I want. For example, if I choose red, it will take on this kind of red tint. And again, I can change the transparency to even lower. Right, let's say I wanted to go like in that direction to make this background warmer, hotter, then I would probably use red. In this example, it doesn't really work. I can also use pink, magenta, or I can make it lighter. I can do anything I want with it. I can choose any color here and adjust the transparency of it accordingly in order to create that filter. But in this particular example, I want to make the background a little bit cooler and darker. So I'm using a cool blue color and making it darker. So this was one example. I wanted to show you another way of using elements. Let me show you another design. Okay, what, for example, this one. Oops, something happened here. It looks like I messed up my my actual quote somehow, but I'll have to fix that. But here, this is another beautiful image that I chose from Unsplash.com. It's an image of New York City, and I didn't really want to place a filter over the entire image because I thought the colors were so beautiful, and I didn't want to cover, you know, or alter the colors of the image. So what I did here, let me just try to fix the code. So that you're not confused here. It's this part that got messed up. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, it's actually here. It just somehow got. Okay. Okay. Um, Sorry about that. Okay, something like that. I will fix it later. But you'll see here, this is a shorter quote than the previous one we saw. Here, I just needed 2 text boxes, and I'm using 2 similar fonts, Advent Pro Light and Advent Pro Bold, and I'm just using capital letters to emphasize the part of the quote that I wanted to emphasize. And I was able to create a more or less uniform shape by just using 2 text boxes here. Okay, and the way you'll see that the background is a very busy background, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use it for quote posters. In the past, I told you to find images with some empty space that you can use the empty spaces in order to put the quote in, but it doesn't mean that we have to throw out all beautiful busy images like this one. So there are a few ways to isolate the text from the background if you don't want to place the filter over the entire image. And one of the ways is this, just putting a strip. So it's the same concept, the same element and shapes the box that I just, if I were to create a filter over the whole image, it would look like that. Okay, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave the original colors in most of the image and just have this strip right over the letters. And you'll see that if I take this out completely, it becomes difficult to read the quote, right? I would really need to work on making the image darker and or maybe making the letters bigger, and still it may not work in order to make this readable, easy to read, I should say. But if I add this filter right on top, right, and let's just make sure that it is back already and the letters are on top of the filter, I can make this even less transparent if I want, right? If I do something like this, right, put this to 50% transparency, for example, it becomes even easier to read. And I don't have to use this purple color. I can use, I don't know, green, for example, because I have some green and purple shades in the background, right? So you can see how green works. Maybe make this darker, something like that. That's another option. I don't have to make this transparent at all. I can bring the transparency all the way up and it will just be a plain green box, which looks kind of ugly in my opinion, but it does make it very easy to read what the quote says. So just for the sake of this example, I wanted to show you that. So try to bring the transparency as low as you can so that the font, the text is still readable, easy to read. Okay, and you can work with these boxes, with these shapes in any way that you want. Another option that I would have, I'll delete this. If I want, I can take the box and create like really small boxes that I put over every word or every line, right? Like maybe something like that. And I can make this black, for example. Bring the transparency down. Something like this. Red, black. And I have the box just over the line. It's almost invisible, but it makes it easier to read. It becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt because then you have to, it's hard to move it because you have the text box over there as well, but you get the idea. If I want to add another one, I just go to element shapes, box, create another small box. I'll show you, I'll do this one a little differently so you can see. Put it over the next line. Something like that. Make this black. And in this case, maybe I don't want to change the transparency at all. I want it to remain black. And if I bring my text forward, you'll see it looks something like that. So you can play around with it. And I just want to show you another way of using these elements here. To go back to my previous example, the previous quote. So after I put this filter on top, I realized that it really it changed the main part of the image for me, which is this crystal ball here. And the crystal ball is really beautiful. It really adds this feeling of illusion, which is the theme for this poster. And it kind of became dark and didn't stand out so much after I added this filter. You'll see here. So what did I do? This is a circle, right? So if I add a circle on top of it from my elements, you'll see if I click here, this is my circle. It's a very light screen that I created and put on top of this circle. And this is what the image looked like before. And after I put this kind of teal colored circle on top, I wanted to add a little element of blue or green to kind of make it seem even more magical, like the like the letters, the text is kind of reflecting on this um, on this sphere here, and also to draw a little bit more attention to it, because it kind of doesn't stand out as much if I take this away. So you can experiment with these elements here. You have a lot of different shapes in Canva to see if you can use them as filters, um, as text boxes. You know, maybe I just want to put this like right in the middle of my quote, and I want to have my quote on top of it. I can reduce the transparency of this as well, or change the colors over here. So I don't want to do that because I think it looks ugly. But you know, these are a few ways of really making the text stand out on quote posters. That's what I wanted to focus on in this video. So just by applying a screen to the poster with transparency, anywhere between 20 and 40, I would say, in most cases. And you make sure that you send it to the back here, not in all the way to the back, because then it will disappear behind your background, but right in between the background and the text. Okay, so and if you want, you can send the Kabbalah.info watermark behind this filter as well, and this way you have a really nice bold font that stands out on the page, and people really want to read this quote because it's easy to read and it has parts of it that have been emphasized and so on. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll record some meetings this way, and if you find them helpful, we can continue to do this. Love you all together.